A group of Northern Elders, led by former military head of state General Ibrahim Babangida, has settled on former President of the Senate Bukola Saraki and Governor of Bauchi State Bala Mohammed as consensus candidates of the North in the People's Democratic Party, but asked both of them to meet and agree on one person. While the Northern Elders, in a statement signed by Professor Ango Abdullahi, said 32 out of 36 Northern Elders convened on the matter voted for 4 aspirants who subjected themselves to the consensus decision, and that the results of the voting shows that Saraki got 10 votes. Bala Mohammed 10 votes also, Aminu Tambuwal 7 votes, and Mohammed Hayatuddin 5 votes, among other criteria used to rate the aspirants. And after the voting, the elders say they presented their findings to General Babangida, who then endorsed the voting pattern and settled for Saraki and Mohammed, with the condition that both of them should further meet to come up with a concession that will allow for only one of them to emerge as Northern PDP consensus candidate.
Well, for more on this, we are joined by Samaila Musa, who is the Director of Strategic Communications of the Coalition of Northern Groups. And in our overflow studio is ARISE News Analyst Mahmud Jega. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the news tonight. Let me begin with you in the studio here. Tell us, what do you make of this? Because for a lot of people, this was a decision between 4 gentlemen to reach a consensus. However, we've seen them traverse the length and breadth of this country, yet it's not over. We have 2 men standing. Why is it so difficult to reach a consensus?
Okay. First and foremost, I want to commend the Northern Elders Forum, who actually took up this initiative. But again, it's also important to thank the aspirants themselves who came together, you know, having seen the quality of the kind of people, the timber of the people who are actually contesting. So, you know, it's going to be a very keenly contested election. So really, they saw that brotherly thing that needs to come to display in order to avoid some kind of crisis. And then they submitted themselves to these elders. What this simply shows is that there's still some level of sanity in the North, that people, regardless of their ambition, can actually be level-headed to this extent of coming down to say, well, we still have some people that we regard as our fathers. Let's go to them in order to help us to actually, solve this puzzle. But then, the criteria, because when you look at the capacity, you cannot just base the criteria on the capacity of those people. None of these 4 candidates, there's none of them you can actually discard or, throw in the garbage. They all have managed some microcosm of Nigeria at one point or the other. Is it the former Senate President you want to talk about, or is it the former Speaker of the National Assembly who is currently a governor that you want to talk about? Or is it Hayatuddin Mohammed, who is actually a captain of industry in Nigeria that, if you're there whether it comes to banking or oil and gas and stuff, this man has always been, a captain in that regard? Or is it Senator Bala Mohammed, who is currently the governor of Bauchi State, that you want to talk about, who actually was a civil servant who rose through the ranks to become a permanent secretary. So really, you will know that we have so much issues if we really want to start talking about the capacity of these people. So rather, what do? You consider so many things. And when you look at the criteria that Northern Elders actually followed, first, there's an assessment of the candidates themselves. The second, it comes to zonal assessment, where they come from. Now, when you look at the Northwest, I don't even want to talk about Shagari. The Northwest, because we're talking about PDP now, has actually got the PDP ticket to the extent of producing a president in the person of Yar'Adua. And then the Northeast actually also had a shot at it, because in 2011 they had a consensus arrangement which the Northeast was the one who was given the ticket of the PDP, even though he lost at the primaries. Right. And then in 2019 also, the ticket went to the Northeast. So that this is even coming up is actually something to really commend all the parties involved, to say the North Central that has also always feel like being left behind, like we've never been part of you. Like, oh, geographically we are part of the North, but when it comes to scheme of things, you've always shut us out. So this time around, they are coming in to say, look, we are one. So it's actually something in the right direction that deserves commendation. All right,
Mahmud Jega, well, Samaila thinks it's a decision, a good one in his own estimation. But it looks like that this northern group, from all indication, of course, is narrowing it down to a northern candidate. And it seems to be against the general mood in the country that the presidency for 2023 should not only go to the south, but should be micro-zoned to the southeast. And also the question again, of course, is how binding this decision on consensus, narrowing it down to Saraki and Bala Mohammed.
Well, although you spoke about the general mood in the country, I think it's more correct to say that is the general mood in the south, because there are many people, I think, in the north, especially in the PDP, who do not share in that mood, and that is why there are so many presidential aspirants from the north in the PDP. Now, it is not the first time this kind of arrangement was done in PDP, because in 2011, I remember there were 4 or 5 candidates that were screened by the Northern Elders, that time chaired by the now late Malam Adamu Chiroma, and they settled for Atiku Abubakar, who ran against President Jonathan but lost in the primary. So it's not the first time. Now, whether it is binding, we will have to see, because this is not a legal body or even any official organ in the PDP. So, and it was not even a long process, because honestly, we didn't even know. We knew that 4 aspirants were trying to reach a consensus, but we didn't know there was a Northern Elders Forum that waded into it until we had the decision today. So how effective it will be, we will have to see, because we will have to see whether their decision is binding on the PDP delegates, even those from the north now we are talking about. We will have to see. And of course, the matter is not even over, because they settled for 2 aspirants and only one of those can go. And don't forget, those 2 aspirants do not even include the biggest northern masquerade in the PDP, which is Atiku Abubakar, himself a former beneficiary of this kind of process. So there is still a long way to go, I'm sorry to say.
It's not over until it's over. Let me come back to Samaila, because Professor Mahmud Jega just said there, a lot of Nigerians did not know about the northern group behind this. We just saw 4 aspirants, traversing the country trying to get a consensus. So apart from the name we saw in the release today, which is the former head of state, General Ibrahim Babangida, and of course Professor Ango Abdullahi, who is the convener of the Northern Elders Forum, who are the people that make up this group, and how influential are they?
Well, there are quite a lot of them. I'm not a member of the Northern Elders Forum, so I won't be able to give you the list of the people who are involved.
But how influential are they?
Yeah, of course, they're quite very influential. I mean, you can see from the display of this candidates themselves, they know that these are their elders, they know these are their fathers. If they are not influential, they would even, the suggestion will come up to say, we want to go and meet them to help us solve this logjam. But of course, these are people of integrity. These are people that have actually, lived above board all this while. These are people who are not can't carry members of any political party anyway, because they need to see all the northern candidates, because when you look at the name of the group, is Northern Elders Forum. So what it means is that it's actually pro-North. So all the people who are contesting for election from northern Nigeria, they see them as their fathers. And I can tell you, across party lines, you have seen people trooping to Mina to go and see IBB, either to go and inform him or intimate him about this political ambition or that political ambition. So that's to tell you how relevant these people still are. And you can see that his name is become very profound in this whole arrangement. So really, I mean, there's no overemphasizing that these are actually people of influence in northern Nigeria.
Right. Mahmud Jega, how much of a heavyweight are these two gentlemen? One, a former governor, former Senate president, of course, the other one too, a former governor and minister of the FCT, where we are. How much of a heavyweight are they in the event that either of them emerges against the backdrop of a Wike who's saying, look, all this consensus talk is balderdash, for want of a better word. And Atiku has said, if he doesn't get the ticket, kiss the PDP goodbye. In the event that either of these gentlemen emerge, how much of a heavyweight, how much of a threat will they be to Shibajo in the APC, Tinubu, and all the other, maybe heavyweights, if you like, in the APC?
Well, as of now, things are not clear in either party. There is a very big contest shaping up in APC. There's also a very big contest shaping up in PDP, because by the time this process produces one of the two between Senator Bukola Saraki and Senator Bala Mohammed, there is still Atiku Abubakar, who is another, for that matter, very big northern aspirant in PDP, and they will all have to face the many other aspirants from the south before one can emerge. So sitting here, it is almost impossible to say who is going to be the candidate, just like it is almost impossible to say who will be the candidate in APC. But they are quite prominent. Senator Bukola Saraki is a very influential, very well-known name. Governor for 2 terms, Senate President, is a very big name in politics. Bala Mohammed maybe slightly less so, although he was FCT minister, a prominent one for about 5 years, and has been governor of Bauchi State in the last 4 years. So he's also fairly well known, probably slightly less so than Saraki. So if either one of them is anointed as the consensus candidate, he will be a very important player, although honestly he will still have to come up against other very big players in both the north and the south.
And Samaila, how is this likely to be read in the general context of what's playing out ahead of this election, with the growing calls for a southern president after 8 years of a President Muhammad Buhari in power, for the northern elders to say, we are helping with this consensus in the PDP. You've said every candidate, so I'm supposing they will do this for an APC, if should APC aspirants also come up with this. But what does this say about the North and the South dichotomy of power in Nigeria? Is it safe to say that the North is saying power must remain with us?
Well, if you look at the arrangements, because we're talking about PDP solely right now, and the PDP, about 16 years of PDP reign, almost about 14 of that 14 years, or 16 years, 14 of that 14 years is actually in the South. So, and that was actually what informed that decision, even in 2019, to still say, well, let the northern, let's give it to our northern brothers to produce a candidate. You don't have to contest from the south, except if you just want to test the waters, But that has actually not been fulfilled. The PDP, either whatever you want to put it, lost out of that election, So that still stands as we speak today. If you're talking about PDP, that still stands, because it's just in the spirit of justice, equity, and fairness to say, from our own party, we've had it, our brothers from this other part have had it for 14 years. Let our brothers from the other side of the country also have, even if it's going to be for 4 years, whatever it is the arrangement. But since this whole zoning thing actually was the brainchild of the PDP, let's stick to that, in such a way that everybody feels there's actually fairness, regardless of whether we lost election at one particular time or the other. You know, because when you begin to see, feel as a party, if you have an existing or even do an unwritten law, when you begin to feel, no, because we lost at a particular time, you know, we might not be able to revisit that. No, it doesn't really augur well to the other part of the people. But it's very important to also quickly chip in this, that what is very key and very important at this particular juncture is that Nigeria is in a total mess. We need capable hands that can pull this country out of this doldrum. And, you know, from the display, and that's why I'm actually delighted to see the caliber of people who are actually coming out. These are people who have displayed capacity at different level that I feel, well, I think we're getting there, you know, gradually. Yeah.
Bala Mahmoud Jega, would you say for the PDP that at this time, yes, just like Samaila said, PDP actually mooted the idea of zoning since 1999. At a point, it looked like PDP was going to jettison zoning and just, you know, lay the field open, let the best man emerge. What would you say is the ideal mode right now for the PDP if it's going to clinch 2023?
You see, it was like Atiku Abubakar said recently, and before him, I think Dr. Pesi said it, and several other candidates. PDP has a fighting chance of returning to power at the federal level next year if they play their cards right. And the thinking, although people do not state it that openly, is that since APC is very likely to produce a candidate from the southwest, the way things are going, or from the south generally, let us open our party, that's PDP, to the possibility of a northern candidate who might be able to cash in on some of the crises that might generate in APC for us to return to power. That is the most important thing. It is not the sentimental thing about zoning. The most important thing is how could our party return to power next year, and some of the northern aspirants think they stand a very good chance given what APC is likely to do. This is the main consideration. People may not want to say it in those terms, but really it looks like that's the main concern at this time.
Mahmud Jega, ARISE Analyst, and Samaila Musa, thank you very much for joining us, both of you gentlemen. It's been an interesting chat.